Let's jump right into this explainer, because today we're breaking down the brilliant and honestly totally ruthless strategy behind the world's largest luxury empire. If you've ever found yourself wondering exactly how the most exclusive names in fashion, jewelry, and spirits all ended up under one incredibly powerful umbrella, well, you're at exactly the right place. So let's get into it.
Think about a designer handbag. Now think about a bottle of vintage champagne or a high-end luxury watch. On paper, right, these products have absolutely nothing in common. I mean, they cater to wildly different customers, they exist in completely separate industries, and they come from entirely different historical backgrounds. And yet, in this crazy, fascinating paradox, they are all controlled by one single colossal entity.
Which brings us to the core mystery we're unraveling today. How exactly did one business quietly assemble the world's greatest collection of luxury brands? You know, most empires in history, they were built by going out and conquering new territories. But as we're going to see, this empire did something entirely different. It was built by a guy named Bernard Arnault who grasped something so fundamental about human desire that his competitors totally missed it.
Section 1. The Luxury Empire.
Okay, before we dig into the how, we've got to wrap our heads around the sheer, staggering scale of the what. Just listen to this list. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany Co, Bulgari, Tag Heuer, Hennessy, Sephora, Fendi, Givenchy, Rimowa. It's a genuinely dizzying lineup. We're talking about massive companies spanning high fashion, jewelry, cosmetics, champagne, spirits, even hotels. And honestly, that's just scratching the surface. It's an overwhelming portfolio.
Now, you might assume Bernard Arnault was born into this glamorous world of Parisian haute couture. Actually, he wasn't at all. Before he became one of the wealthiest people on the planet, Arnault was working in his family's construction company. And at first glance, the rugged, utilitarian construction industry feels like it's a million miles away from the delicate, ultra-exclusive world of luxury fashion. But Arnault had this unique vision. He saw incredible opportunities where everyone else just saw struggling, failing businesses.
Section 2. An aggressive acquisition path. This is where the story gets really wild. Because this construction outsider, he didn't just politely knock on the door of the luxury world, he basically took a battering ram to it. Let's walk through this relentless timeline, because his aggressive maneuvers are legendary. Back in the early 1980s, the French economy was tanking, and this massive textile group called Boussac was in deep trouble. While other buyers were poking around Boussac's factories, Arnold zeroed in on one hidden golden asset buried inside, Christian Dior. He bought the business, ruthlessly stripped down and sold off all the industrial operations, and poured everything into rebuilding the Dior brand. But his most aggressive play happened a few years later. In 1987, Louis Vuitton merged with Moët Hennessy to create LVMH. It was supposed to be this unified luxury group, but instead it turned into chaos, massive internal disagreements, infighting between the Moët and Hennessy executives. Arnold saw the blood in the water and pounced. He covertly bought up shares, playing the warring executives against each other, eventually taking over and earning himself the nickname, the Wolf in Cashmere. It was a notoriously hostile takeover, but history proved it to be one of the greatest business moves of the 20th century. And the guy never stopped, right up to the massive 2021 buyout of American icon Tiffany Co, where LVMH stepped in not to erase the brand, but to heavily invest and modernize it.
So what drove all this? Well, a crucial realization hit Arnault early on, right after taking over Dior. He realized factories can be replaced, machines can be upgraded, but a luxury brand with decades of history is almost impossible to recreate. He totally got that the real value wasn't in the manufacturing equipment, it was in the heritage. I mean, you can't just build a brand new factory and magically summon 100 years of prestige, right?
Section 3. The LVMH system.
Okay, so once Arnault aggressively grabbed control of these historic names, he had to figure out how to actually run them without ruining them. And he built this brilliant, totally counterintuitive playbook. Think about how a standard corporate merger works. Usually, companies acquire businesses to slash costs, right? They combine factories, they fire people to eliminate duplicate departments, they standardize operations so everything runs the exact same way. It's all about efficiency, it's all about uniformity. But luxury doesn't work that way. And this is the absolute genius of the LVMH system. If Louis Vuitton suddenly looked and felt identical to Dior, or if Dom Perignon felt interchangeable with Moët, their exclusive value would just vanish into thin air. Uniformity is literally the enemy of luxury. Every single brand has to have its own story, its own distinct identity, and its own heritage.
So instead of throwing all these brands into some giant corporate blender, LVMH split the responsibilities. The individual maisons, the houses, they keep total creative independence. The designers and the craftsmen, they focus purely on quality, creativity, and preserving that unique heritage. Meanwhile, the parent company, LVMH, operates quietly in the background. They provide the immense financial muscle, the global distribution network, the real estate expertise, the legal support. Basically, the artists get to be artists, while the parent company handles all the heavy corporate lifting.
Section 4. Scaling the unscalable.
And this brings us to the secret weapon of LVMH. How do you scale a business globally without ruining the front-end exclusivity that makes it valuable in the first place? Well, you do it through shared back-end capabilities. While every brand looks fiercely independent to the consumer, behind the scenes they're piggybacking on the massive scale of the LVMH empire. We are talking enormous purchasing power, the ability to lock down the absolute best prime retail locations in the world, because landlords want the whole LVMH portfolio, right? They share cutting-edge supply chains, real estate expertise, talent recruitment. It's this massive economy of scale that fundamentally strengthens every single brand, but the customer never, ever sees it.
What the customer does see is a tightly controlled image. For one, discounting is super rare. Luxury completely depends on exclusivity. If a brand pumps out too much product or if their stuff is always on sale, the prestige just evaporates. So LVMH fiercely controls pricing to make sure that aura of exclusivity is never compromised.
Let's actually break down the precise steps they use to manufacture this scarcity. Step 1. They carefully control production and distribution. They absolutely do not want their products available everywhere. Step 2. They meticulously choose flagship stores. They design the architecture, the lighting, the service to communicate pure exclusivity way before you even buy anything. And Step 3. They launch highly limited collections to generate intense hype and excitement. Through these steps, LVMH makes sure you aren't just buying a product, you're actively pursuing it.
Now, compare this to the rest of the corporate world, which is basically obsessed with short-term, 90-day quarterly performance. LVMH takes a completely different approach: generational patience. And guys, this is a massive competitive advantage. Luxury brands are built over generations. If a fashion collection totally flops for one season, it doesn't destroy a century-old maison. Tastes evolve, recessions come and go, but LVMH just shrugs it off and keeps investing for the long term.
Section 5. The Business of Aspiration.
To really truly understand LVMH, you have to understand what they're actually selling to the world. Because the truth is, they aren't really selling handbags or champagne or watches. They're selling aspiration. They sell a feeling of achievement. They sell craftsmanship, history, identity. They use these extravagant fashion shows and huge celebrity partnerships to inspire deep emotional desire. They aren't trying to create urgency. They are investing in aspiration. And they pull this off by linking every single brand to a highly specific story. Louis Vuitton isn't just leather, right? It's the story of 19th century elite travel trunks. Dom Perignon isn't just a drink. It represents literal centuries of champagne tradition. Tiffany isn't just a shiny rock. It carries generations of American symbolism. Each brand's historical story adds this massive emotional weight beyond the physical item. That's over a century of trust that a new competitor simply cannot replicate, no matter how many billions they throw at it. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we come back to this incredibly powerful realization. At the end of the day, LVMH built an empire by buying history. Bernard Arnault realized, better and earlier than anyone else, that the most valuable assets on Earth aren't factories or cutting-edge tech. The most valuable assets are names, histories, reputations, and crucially, having the immense patience to protect them. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought to chew on. We live in a world that is absolutely obsessed with rapid disruption, moving fast, breaking things. But as LVMH has shown us, is preserving the past actually the ultimate competitive advantage in our modern era? It's definitely something to think about the next time you walk past one of those legendary storefronts. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today. I really hope you found it as fascinating as I did. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.